In the southwestern region of Nigeria, a country in West Africa, there is a small village. A man named John is from that village. Currently, he has been living in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, for nearly 20 years. He runs a bicycle sales and repair shop for his livelihood. But an incident happened in John's life, one that not only affected his family, but also blurred the line between reality and the unknown. Before getting into the main story, John shared a short but strange incident. In their area, one day a man suddenly went missing. He had gone near a river for some work but never returned. After searching for a long time, the family called a tribal healer. The healer arrived with 2 of his disciples. After listening carefully to all the details, the healer asked one of his disciples to lie down on the ground and close his eyes. Then he began chanting incantations. Gradually, the disciple fell into a deep sleep, so still that he appeared almost lifeless. After about an hour, the disciple woke up and spoke with the healer. Then the healer turned to the family and said, "I am sorry, I cannot give you any good news. Your son has been killed. His headless body can be found at a specific location." He not only mentioned the place but also described the condition of the body and the reason behind the murder. He explained that some practitioners of black magic had killed the man and taken his head. 2 things in this incident are especially noteworthy. First, how did the disciple see or know these things while in that deep sleep? Second, the use of human heads in black magic practices, which, according to them, actually happens. These 2 elements are directly connected to John's main story. Now, let's look at John's background and the environment he grew up in. John is currently over 50 years old. His family is Christian. However, in that region, Muslims, Christians, and various tribal communities live together. Among these tribes, one of the most prominent is the Yoruba community. They are very ancient and have their own religious beliefs, where the practice of black magic is permitted. They do not live in isolated jungles. Rather, they live among regular communities, just like others. Many of them are educated and live modern lives, yet they continue to practice their traditional forms of magic. The Yoruba people are considered highly skilled in mystical practices. They possess ancient texts written in their own language, and this knowledge has been passed down through generations. There is also a belief among them that sacrificing one's life for the protection of their tribe is something honorable and acceptable. This is something that the people of that religion and community are very well aware of. But the main point is how deeply a person believes in this form of magic. Some people are so devoted that they are even willing to sacrifice their own lives voluntarily. They would openly declare, sacrifice me, and let the rest of you be free." Yes, it is mainly the people of the Yoruba community who practice such things. In Dubai, you can also find some African individuals with long, matted hair, wearing various beads and stone necklaces on their hands, feet, and necks. These are mostly tribal people. The things I am mentioning before going into the main story are actually part of the main story itself. Even in Dubai, for their daily needs, especially among these African communities, it is said that some of them secretly take the help of mystical practices. However, it is not necessarily for harming others. Rather, they do it for improving their business, getting better jobs, love, marriage, or restoring peace and happiness in their families. Even after coming to Dubai, they try to use black magic for their own benefit. Now, the reason for explaining all these details before the main incident is that otherwise many questions might arise in your mind while listening to the story. So, coming to John's family, John's grandfather had 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and John's grandfather was the 3rd among them. In their family, John's father, his 3 brothers, and 4 sisters made up a large household. John's father was the middle child, and John himself was also in the middle among his siblings. Each of his uncles also had large families. Altogether, each family had around 15 to 20 members. It is not possible to introduce everyone, so John only mentioned those who are directly related to the incident. John's grandfathers were very wealthy and were among the richest people in that region. Because of their wealth, many people were envious of them. To protect their property and ensure their safety from such greed and malicious intentions, John's youngest granduncle began practicing some forms of magic so that no one could harm them. Generally, Muslims and Christians in that region do not practice magic. However, if someone did and the Yoruba people found out, it could lead to serious conflict. The tribal communities believed that this was their domain and only they had the right to practice it. For example, just as only a Muslim can be an imam in a mosque, and only a Christian can become a priest in a church, they believed that only they had the right to practice magic. Anyway, John's granduncle secretly learned some basic level of magical practices from a nearby tribal healer. It was only at an initial stage, nothing advanced. But eventually, the matter did not remain hidden. The tribal people came to know about it. This incident took place around 60 to 70 years ago, possibly during the 1950s or 1960s. At that time, people lived in separate tribes and communities. Among those tribes, the Yoruba were the most dominant, and each tribe had its own chief. Eventually, the chief of a nearby tribe, whose territory was close to John's family, heard about this. He learned that John's granduncle had started practicing black magic, although he did not know the reason behind it. He assumed that perhaps John's granduncle was preparing himself as a rival. This thought made him very angry, as they considered this their profession. So, the chief came to John's grandfather's house and said, "We work for the welfare of people. We practice magic not to harm others, even though we know how to do so. But this is our responsibility, our profession. Just as we cannot read your Bible, and we cannot read the Quran of the Muslims, in the same way you also cannot practice this magic. This is our duty. If you ever face any problem, you can call us, and we will help you as much as we can. But those among you who are practicing this should stop. When you do this, it disrespects us. This is our profession, not yours." At that moment, John's granduncle responded, "Am I learning this to harm anyone? I am learning it for myself. I have no intention of using it as a profession like you do to earn money. You can be assured of that. I will only use it for my own safety and protection. You already know that I have a lot of property, and you also know that in this area, people often lose their wealth through magical means. So let me do what I need to do. You may leave now." All of this conversation was originally happening in their local language. I am narrating it in English. Anyway, hearing such words from him, the tribal chief felt deeply insulted. Being told, "You may leave now," was a serious humiliation for someone in his position as a chief. At that moment, the chief spoke up and said, "I am the chief, the head healer of this region. Yet you are saying that your property could be taken away through magic. Since we are the ones who practice such things, it means you are accusing us of taking your wealth through magic. By saying this, you have deeply insulted me." Then John's granduncle replied, "I did not say anything directed at you personally. You may be a good man, but are all the members of your tribe good? Do the others in your tribe not know magic? If they harm me, what will I do then? And will you take action against them? No. You will stand by your tribe and support them." This argument between John's granduncle and the tribal chief escalated. At one point, it turned into a physical confrontation. Hearing the commotion, John's father, uncles, and other young men rushed to the scene. Seeing that their uncle had been struck, they attacked the chief and beat him severely. From that moment, a dangerous conflict began between the Yoruba tribe and John's Christian family. This was only the beginning. There are more layers to this, which we will understand as the story progresses. Now, moving on to the second part of the incident. After being beaten, the chief left, but before leaving, he said, "This was not right. Everyone will have to pay for this." Exactly 2 days after the chief was beaten, something strange happened. That night, everyone in the family went to sleep as usual. The next morning, the women of the household woke up early, as they normally did. They began trying to wake their husbands, brothers, and sons, but surprisingly, none of them woke up. No matter how much they tried, none of the men regained consciousness. The women checked their pulse. Yes, they were still breathing, but they would not wake up. They poured water on their heads, tried various ways to revive them, but nothing worked. Panic spread among the women. They began crying, screaming, and wailing in fear. Soon they discovered that not just their family, but around 120 or even more male members of their entire tribe were affected in the same way. All of them were in a condition similar to what medical science would call a coma. There was a pulse, they were alive but completely unconscious. Among them were John's father, uncles, and grandfathers, both young and old. Strangely, the young boys in the family were not affected at all. Only the adult and elderly men had fallen into this mysterious condition. It was an extremely unusual and terrifying situation. How could so many people fall into such a state at the same time? What really happened to them that night? The women of the tribe were nearly losing their sanity. And remember, this was around 50 to 60 years ago. Medical facilities in African regions were not very advanced at that time. Still, they tried everything they could. They took them to doctors, to healers, to anyone who might help, but nothing worked. There was no improvement at all. Finally, having no other option, the women discussed among themselves and decided that they must go to the tribal chief. They believed that the origin of this problem must be connected to him. When they went to him, they explained everything, cried, and begged for help. But the chief denied everything. He said he had no knowledge of such a problem and that he had not caused it. Even after pleading desperately, they got no help from him. Disheartened, the women returned home. Another day passed in fear and uncertainty. The next day, they went together to a local church and spoke to a priest. After hearing everything, the priest said, "All right, let me see what can be done. I will consult with others I know and see what advice they can give." After about 3 to 4 hours, the priest returned and spoke to the women again. What he said next shocked everyone. The priest said that the condition of the men was caused by something supernatural. He explained that while they were asleep, their souls had left their bodies, and those souls had been captured and trapped by powerful and dangerous jinn somewhere deep in the ocean. And the priest also explained who was behind all of this. He said that it was the chief of another Yoruba tribe who had done this, and bringing everyone back from this condition would be extremely difficult. In fact, only the one who had done this could reverse it. No one else had the power to undo it. The priest advised that there was no point in complicating things further. He told the women to go to that chief together, cry, beg, and hold onto his feet. No one should let go until he agreed. He also mentioned that this type of magic is known as soul-binding magic, one of the most dangerous forms of black magic. This magic had been cast upon their entire tribe, which is why all of this had happened. Now the question arises, how is something like this even possible? Can a human soul really be captured? The explanation given was that during sleep, a part of the human soul leaves the body and moves freely. It is during that vulnerable state that such powerful magic can be performed. This kind of soul binding cannot be done while a person is awake, only during sleep. Among the ancient magical practices of the Yoruba, this is considered one of the oldest and most dangerous. And not everyone can perform it. Only highly advanced practitioners, those who have mastered the art of magic over many years. After hearing all this, the priest left. The women then discussed among themselves and realized that they had only one option, to follow the priest's advice and go back to that tribal chief. So once again, they went to him as a group. This time, they broke down in tears, crying desperately. They even went to the chief's wife, begging her as well. At first, the chief refused completely. Earlier, he had even denied doing anything. But later, he admitted that he was indeed responsible. Still, he refused to help. He said, "In front of my entire tribe, I was insulted and beaten. If I forgive them now, my people will no longer respect me. I will punish them. There is no forgiveness." Everyone continued crying and pleading. At one point, the chief's wife also stepped in and said, "Please let them go. Don't be so harsh. Look at how they are crying, it doesn't feel right. Forgive them." Seeing all this, the chief's heart softened a little. However, he was still hesitant, worried about what his tribe would think. Then some of the elders of his tribe spoke up and said, "All right, chief, forgive them this time. They didn't understand. Let it go." When several people from his own tribe supported forgiveness, the chief finally agreed. He then said to the women, "All right, I will begin the process of returning the souls of your people. But I have some conditions. Listen to them first." Before he could even finish, the women said, "We agree to any condition you set. We trust that you will not ask for something impossible." Then the chief said, "Once they recover and wake up, all of them must come to me and ask for forgiveness. And those who raised their hands against me must come to my tribe, in front of everyone, and hold my feet and apologize." The women agreed immediately, although there was a problem. In that region of Nigeria, Christians held higher social status than the tribal communities. And John's family was not only Christian but also very wealthy and respected. For such people to go and hold the feet of a tribal chief and apologize publicly, it was extremely humiliating. But to save lives, the women had no choice. They said, "Yes, they will apologize. For now, we are asking forgiveness on their behalf. Once they recover, they will come and ask for forgiveness themselves. Please forgive them." The chief then warned, "Remember this, if they do not come to me and apologize after they are freed, then something even worse will happen. What I am doing now, I can still reverse. But next time, I will do something that even I cannot undo. There will be no solution then." Hearing this, everyone understood the seriousness of his warning. Once again, the women assured him that the men would apologize. Finally, the chief said, "All right, go back. Tonight, their souls will return. By morning, they will wake up. And as soon as they wake up, they must come to me without delay." The women returned home, waiting anxiously for the night. That night, none of the women could sleep. They stayed awake, waiting for the moment when the men would wake up. As they waited, some of them eventually fell asleep out of exhaustion. Then suddenly, in the middle of the night, loud cries and shouting began. The women saw that the men were starting to regain consciousness. Overwhelmed with joy, they began shouting, crying, celebrating. One by one, all the men regained consciousness that night. Every male member of the household who had been in that coma-like state woke up, but none of them understood what had happened. They saw everyone celebrating, some even playing drums. To them, it felt like they had simply gone to sleep and just woken up. They had no idea what had actually happened. Slowly, everyone gathered together, as the noise brought people from nearby houses. Once things calmed down, the women began explaining everything that had happened. But the men kept saying, "We were just sleeping, we just woke up. We heard your shouting, and that's what woke us." Then one of them said, "I think I saw a dream. I was drowning deep inside the ocean, struggling to stay alive, screaming for help, but no one came." After a moment, he realized something strange. I wasn't alone. Many of my neighbors were there too. Everyone was struggling, just like me, trying to survive, screaming for help. Another man spoke up, "I saw the exact same dream." Then another added, "And those devils, the ones surrounding us." "Yes," someone interrupted. "They looked terrifying, horrifying, like skeletons, and they were talking, laughing." Another man continued. One of them shouted, "There's no point screaming. No one is coming to save you." And then they all started laughing again. What a horrifying, bone-chilling laugh it was. At that moment, one thing became clear. They had all seen the same dream. But how was that even possible? Then John's younger grandfather, the one who had some knowledge of occult practices, understood the truth. He realized this was no dream. What they experienced was real. That night, when everyone had fallen asleep, the Yoruba chief had used black magic to summon powerful and terrifying jinn. Those entities captured their wandering souls, the souls that leave the body during sleep, and dragged them deep into the ocean. There, the jinn tormented them, terrifying them in unimaginable ways. According to everyone's description, those beings were horrifying, skeletal in appearance, surrounded by a dark and dreadful atmosphere. Just imagine it, drowning in the depths of the ocean, surrounded by monstrous, skeletal entities, mocking you. What kind of horror would that be? Anyway, the women and the younger grandfather explained everything, how they had solved the situation, and what condition the chief had given. Hearing those conditions, many of the men became furious. "How dare he?" one of them shouted. He wants us to apologize? That too by holding his feet? Let's go. We'll deal with him today. We should have finished him earlier. That was our mistake. Today, we won't spare him." But then, the eldest member of John's family, the grandfather, stepped in. "Calm down," he said. "Acting in anger will only bring more harm. We must think carefully. Go home for now. We'll decide what to do later. There is no benefit in escalating this further." Some of the younger men still wanted revenge, but they eventually listened to the elders. The younger grandfather added, "Don't let anger control you. I understand what the consequences could be, even if others don't. So we must follow the elders' advice." The next day, John's grandfathers and other family members went to the chief. They apologized just as he had demanded. However, seeing their status and dignity, the chief did not force them to fall at his feet. Instead, they apologized respectfully in front of everyone. The chief then said, "I forgive you. I had come to your place only to introduce our profession. But the way you insulted and attacked me, what I did was only a small response. Imagine what would have happened if I had taken real revenge." He continued, "Remember, this kind of magic is not a game. You are treating it like one. These things are beyond your control. You may start something like this, but you will never know how it ends. We do." Even though his words were harsh and filled with anger, they controlled themselves and agreed with him. "Yes, you are right," they said. "You have great power. We don't want to argue further. From now on, none of us or anyone from our tribe will be involved in such practices. Please forgive us." The chief replied, "Make sure you remember this." With that, the matter was settled. The chief even showed them hospitality, as they had come from another tribe. He wanted the hostility to end, and so did they. Although they controlled their anger, deep down they never forgot what had happened. After all, over 100 men, young and old, had nearly lost their lives because of this. Time passed. Years went by. Almost 30 years later, most of the elders from John's family had passed away. Back then, John had just gotten married. It was around 1993 or 1994. He was about 28 or 29 years old at the time. Around that time, John had a cousin named Jack. Jack was the son of John's elder grandfather's youngest son. One day, Jack brought a girl home and announced that he loved her and wanted to marry her. The girl's name was Maria. At first, the family was already uneasy. But the moment Maria's identity was revealed, everyone was stunned. Maria was from a tribal background. And not just that, she was the granddaughter of that very Yoruba chief, the same man who had once used the terrifying soul-binding magic. She was the daughter of that chief's son. Hearing this, the entire family was outraged. First of all, Maria belonged to a completely different belief system. Her people didn't follow any mainstream religion. Neither Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, nor Hinduism. Their beliefs were deeply rooted in mystical and magical practices. On the other hand, John's family were strict Roman Catholics. Accepting someone from such a background, especially connected to dark magic, was unthinkable for them. And beyond religion, there was an even deeper fear. Everyone remembered what had happened in the past. After such a horrifying incident, if a relationship was formed with that same family again, what would the consequences be? But Jack and Maria made things even more intense. They declared that if they were not allowed to marry, they would pour oil over themselves and set themselves on fire. Now the situation became critical. No one could convince them otherwise. Finally, one of the elders spoke gently to Maria. "Try to understand. According to our faith, we cannot accept you like this. You are not from a recognized Abrahamic religion. This makes things difficult for us." Maria replied calmly, "Then what if I accept Christianity? Will there be any problem then?" The elders exchanged glances and said, "If you truly convert, then we can consider it. Hopefully, there won't be any issue." Maria said, "All right, then take me to the church. Let the priest convert me. After that, the marriage can take place." Everyone agreed, but news travels fast. Within a short time, the matter reached Maria's tribal family. As Jack's family was taking Maria to the church, a group of tribal men suddenly blocked their path. Their current chief, Maria's uncle, stepped forward and said, "Return my niece to me. This marriage cannot happen. Your religion and ours are not the same. If this marriage takes place, it will lead to serious conflict." Jack's father responded, "We have tried to explain to her. She is not listening. You can try. If she agrees to go back with you, we have no objection. But they have threatened to take their own lives. That's why we agreed." Hearing this, the tribal group fell silent. Then Maria's uncle said, "All right, I will speak to her." But when he approached Maria, she refused to even look at him. She turned her face away and said, "You should leave. I love Jack. I will stay with him. I will marry him." Some members of the tribal group then said, "If the girl doesn't want to return, and both of them agree, what's the point of forcing this? Let them marry." After a moment of thought, Maria's uncle said, "Fine, the marriage will happen. I accept it, but it will not be according to your Christian rituals. It will be according to our Yoruba traditions." Now, this created another conflict. The Yoruba marriage traditions were known to be grand and elaborate, but also deeply tied to ritualistic and mystical practices. John's family refused immediately. "No," they said, "we cannot allow that. Those rituals involve practices that go against our faith. The marriage will only happen according to Christian rites." An argument broke out. The argument turned into a heated confrontation, and soon into a violent fight. Jack's family had more people, and the tribal group was beaten and humiliated once again. They left the place in anger. After that, Maria was taken to the church. She was converted to Christianity by the priest, and the marriage was completed. But what happened next was beyond anyone's imagination. As soon as they returned home with the bride, the moment Maria stepped into the courtyard, she suddenly let out a horrifying scream and collapsed to the ground. She was wearing a white dress. Within moments, it turned red with blood. Blood started pouring from her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. She writhed in pain, screaming, "It feels like something is tearing everything apart inside my stomach, ripping me from within." She was rushed to the hospital immediately, but she died on the way. Her death was sudden, brutal, unimaginable. She didn't even get to live 1 hour of her married life. Jack was shattered, almost driven to madness. The pain of losing a loved one like that is something only those who have experienced it can truly understand. But the tragedy didn't end there. Maria's family arrived at the hospital with the police. They accused Jack's family. "We knew this would happen. They have killed our innocent girl. They murdered her brutally. They must be punished." Now, the situation became complicated. Yes, Maria had died, and there had been a horrifying scene of blood. But Jack's family and John's family believed something else entirely. They were convinced this was the result of black magic. In Nigeria, even authorities are aware that such practices exist. But the problem is, there are no clear laws to prove or prosecute black magic. So even if the police suspected something unusual, they had to rely on evidence. And the evidence pointed elsewhere. A post-mortem was conducted, but no external injuries were found on Maria's body. The doctors concluded that her death was caused by a sudden internal medical complication. Because of this, Maria's family failed to prove their accusations, and they could not legally implicate Jack's family or John's family in her death. At that point, Maria's family said, "All right, we will take our daughter's body with us." But Jack refused. "No," he said, "I will bury the love of my life myself." However, it made no difference. With the help of the police, Maria's family took her body away. Helpless, everyone returned home. There was no joy left from the wedding, only grief. The entire family sank into mourning. Days passed as they tried to accept what had happened. 5 to 6 days later, John and his family heard something strange. Maria's family had left everything behind and disappeared. They had abandoned their home, their land, their belongings, handing everything over to relatives, and gone somewhere far away. At first, John's family assumed that this was due to grief after losing their daughter. But exactly 7 days after Maria's death, something horrifying happened. Late at night, Jack suddenly started screaming. His cries were so loud that they woke everyone, including John. First, they thought it was just grief. After all, Jack had lost his wife in such a tragic way. Maybe he was mentally broken. Maybe he had seen Maria in a dream. But within moments, everyone realized something was terribly wrong. It wasn't just Jack. Every member of the house began screaming. Hearing the chaos, no one could stay inside. John ran, and what he saw froze him in shock. Jack was rolling on the ground. Blood was pouring out of his mouth. As John rushed toward him, trying to help, it felt as if some invisible force violently threw him backward. He fell hard, in pain, unable to get close again. And it wasn't just him. Anyone who tried to approach Jack was pushed away by that same unseen force. No one could go near him. His parents screamed, "Save our son!" His siblings cried, "Help him!" But no one could do anything. Jack kept writhing, screaming, struggling, until suddenly, his body went still. He lay motionless on the ground. Jack was dead. No one even got the chance to take him to the hospital. No healer, no remedy, nothing could be done. And this time, no one needed an explanation. Everyone understood. News of Jack's death spread throughout the area. People began whispering, "This is the work of Maria's family. They have taken revenge." Fear spread rapidly. 2 unnatural deaths, one after another. First the bride, then the groom. And many people had been involved in that marriage. There had been conflict, physical fights, humiliation. What would happen next? No one knew, but everyone felt it. This wasn't over. They remembered what had happened nearly 30 years ago. If things continued like this, one by one, everyone might die. People gathered and said to Jack's father, "Both your son and daughter-in-law are gone. This won't end here. If we don't find a solution quickly, history will repeat itself. What happened 30 years ago will happen again." Others agreed. Yes, it has already started. First Maria, then Jack. Who knows where it will end? So they decided they had to find a solution. Jack's father and uncles said, "We will consult a healer." They brought in a traditional healer. He began his rituals, but within a short time his face turned pale with fear. Finally, he said, "Forgive me, cannot solve this. This is beyond my power." And he left immediately. They tried to stop him, asking, "At least tell us what's happening." But he said nothing and walked away in silence. Even after that, they called many other well-known healers experts in dealing with dark magic. But every single one of them gave the same answer. "This is not something we can handle."